These Wagyu tacos at Nobu cost $22 per taco. Let's try to make them at home and see if they're as good. So the Wagyu taco at Nobu is one of the greatest bites of food I've ever had, and I want to make this at home. Side note, these taco shells took me forever to figure out how to do, but I'll show you those in a second. First thing we're going to need is the meat. This is boneless short rib Wagyu pieces from H Mart, which is an Asian market near me. You can probably go to any Asian market and find these. I think they're used in hot pot, that's why they're cut like this, but these will be the perfect starting point for these tacos. We're going to put all the ingredients together also because they come together very quickly, so we're just going to prep here. Every restaurant kind of has a different recipe, but most have chives on the top, so we're just going to cut up a bunch of chives. You don't need a ton, they're just a garnish over the top. Once we get those all chopped up and moved out of the way, we're going to move on to making a sauce. Most of the sauces I've had at the restaurants are mayo-based, so we're going to start with Kewpie. This is Japanese mayo. You may see this in your regular grocery store, but if it's not this bottle that comes in the plastic bag and doesn't have a label on the outside of it, that's the American version. It's not nearly as good. But to that Kewpie, we're going to add a little bit of yuzu, we're going to add some wasabi, and then we're going to add white miso. I couldn't find anywhere online where anyone had any idea what this sauce was or the flavoring, so I just kind of took a guess. When I tasted it, it needed a little more citrus, so I put another dash of yuzu in. I'm going to mix that all together, and then we're going to just throw this into a piping bag, which will make it easier to put on the tacos later. If you just want to use a spoon and dollop it on there, that's totally fine. Here's the wonton wrappers we're going to use. They're your just standard gyoza wonton wrappers. I got them at the Asian market, but you can get these at almost any supermarket. The Nobu tacos are pretty small, they're almost bite-sized, so I'm just going to cut this wrapper down a little bit just to make it more like the actual Nobu taco, but if you don't want to do that, it's totally fine. Use the full-size gyoza wrapper. I'm only going to cook about 6 of these, so that's what I cut down now. I'm going to throw a paper towel right onto a sizzling platter, that way when they come out of the oil, I can just throw those in the oven, let them drain, and they'll stay warm. It's on like 150 degrees. But here's how I make these taco shells. I have a muddler here that's stainless steel, so it's safe in the oil, and I wrap the wrapper around that, and then I hold it with the tongs so it stays that shape, and I submerge it in the oil and I cook. This has worked perfectly for me. I've seen other people do other ways, but I tried those and they didn't work. If any of you think of another way that works better than this, let me know, because I definitely want to get these a little more perfect without as many bubbles, but they worked totally fine for what this was. After about 30 seconds, though, you can see they're starting to hold their form. Once they really get solid looking, you can pull that muddler away, and they'll just stay like that in the oil. I'll try to flip them over then to get them to cook more evenly. They want to float, so you really need to kind of submerge them to get them to evenly brown. On that note, also, I'm not looking for a total golden brown like a Chinese restaurant like wonton cracker that they serve you. I want it a little lighter brown like that. That way they're not too crunchy, but they're still fully cooked. Pull those out, and now I'm just going to do the rest of the batch, and they'll stay warm in my oven while I do the rest. On to the meat. Throwing these just into a saute pan here, a little bit of oil to make sure they get nice and golden brown, and these will take no time at all. Hit them with a little bit of salt. I'm going to flip these after they start to brown. Overcooking here is totally fine. You don't need to treat this like regular Wagyu and want to eat it rare. You want it crispy. You want the fat to really render and become nice and crispy around the edges. That's going to give it a real nice texture in these tacos. Fire off that whole pack, and now we're ready to assemble. You can see these shells look perfect from sitting in the oven. Some of the Nobus do the meat differently. Some do little dices, some do long strips. So I'm just going to cut it into nice long strips. I think it's going to look real good in the taco that way, and it'll fit nicely, and you'll get that nice oil with it also. Little strips might dry out. Now let's start to assemble it. We're just going to grab a pair of tongs. You could use your fingers if you want. We're going to really load these up pretty well because the Wagyu is the main star of this. It's most of the flavor. There's not much else that goes into this, so get as much of that meat in there as you can. I'm going to throw a little chives on at this point, and then we're going to put that sauce. Oh, they always do kind of like a little dollop right in the middle, so that's what I'm going to copy. You could do the whole taco if you want. You could even put it under if you want, and I'll put a little more of those chives on the top so they stick to the mayo, and that's it. You have a perfect Nobu-style Wagyu taco. I think that looks pretty great, but the important thing is, what do they taste like? Overall, I'm pretty happy. The Nobu taco shell is a little bit lighter, so they're crunchy but thinner, so you don't get as much like wonton flavor. But the meat was great. The sauce, I don't know. I haven't been there in a while. I think it was pretty spot on. Give these a try and let me know what you guys think.